Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Kim Wren, and I'm the Senior Director of Business Development for SkuVault. I have with us today Betsy Scott, and Betsy is in charge of the enterprise accounts for Varyable. Varyable is a pretty cool app to have and service to have. I'm going to let her tell you about it, but this is a way to get on-demand service or labor for your warehouse. And in this time when we're having some issues with getting people to work, this is really a valuable tool. So with that said, welcome, Betsy. We really appreciate you being here today. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you and about your company?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kim. I'm really excited to be speaking with you today. So real quick, great introduction already. But really simply put, Varyable, we've aimed to change the future of distribution and manufacturing, one labor hour at a time. When businesses like your customers come to us and they tell us about the critical capacity challenges that they're currently faced with, that's precisely where Varyable fits in, right? We are here to provide a path through this minefield that we're all experiencing in the industrial sector and industrial production. So what are we? We are a digital on-demand marketplace for industrial labor. So we've got over almost 200,000 vetted and performance rated on-demand workers that are at your fingertips at a click of a button. So what does this mean for you guys? This means being able to immediately, for businesses, being able to immediately and precisely flex your capacity up and down to these incremental demand movements that you guys are seeing, but also at zero cost to scale. So typically what happens is a business will say, okay, I need this fixed labor line of 100 employees or 50 employees. But what happens is demand doesn't fall in a straight line, right? We all know that. So what happens is when you're having those down cycles, you're like, oh my gosh, I've got all this overhead, all this capacity, and I've got these idle hands, which is expensive. And then on the alternative, you have these demand surges above that fixed labor line, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough hands. I have so much work to do and not enough resources. So you end up turning revenue down. You end up wearing out your current workforce with overtime. We are empowering businesses to incrementalize or variabilize their labor, and really so that they're never ever capacity constrained ever again.
I love that, variabilize. That is really cool. That is a great way.
Our name is a play on words. Admittedly, our name is a play on words. So
yeah, I love that. I will never forget that line. So well, thank you for that information. So I just want to ask you a few things so we can let the audience know some tips and some tricks and information about how they can leverage your service and make their lives easier. So can you tell me about some trends that you're seeing in the labor market and challenges? I think most of us know what these are, but I'd love to hear officially what you all are seeing as far as those trends and the problems that they're presenting.
Well, first I have to say this just makes championing and evangelizing our solution so much easier, because every single one of us are on the same page about what's going on with labor right now in the labor market. So real easy. Demand is rising. Industrial production is up. We've emerged from the pandemic, but at the same time, we're seeing these historic workforce shortages and record numbers of unfilled jobs. I was reading recently it's somewhere up near like 800,000 open jobs right now.
Oh my gosh!
And what's crazy, and that includes temp staffing agencies too. And what's crazy is Varyable's marketplace. So we aggregate workers, right? These on-demand flexible workers. We're seeing over 100% year-over-year growth of workers jumping onto our platform.
Wow.
Just a little plug there, but yeah, so we're seeing rising demand, production is up, but everybody is short on working hands. So they're not only that, but workers are demanding a higher base wage line, right? So that's happening, understandably. And then, there's rumblings out there about talent scarcity and skills gaps, which, can't necessarily be proven. I think personally that the skills are out there, they're just untapped. They're existing in this underemployed ecosystem of workers who don't necessarily want this full-time environment.
Yeah.
So those are the trends I'm seeing. Just to wrap it
Very
up in a
interesting,
nutshell.
because I think too, I do think we're seeing a little bit of a shift where people don't want to work 60 hours a week. I mean, I know I talk to people who are like, we're not going to be like, you and your parents. We're not going to marry our jobs. We're going to go in and we're going to make our money and we're going to go home and enjoy our families. And it's shifting the way that people are doing things. And that's huge.
Absolutely. I think, among many other things, of course, what you just mentioned, but I think this concept of the gig economy has really, really shaped the way people think about work. And it's gaining a lot of momentum in the industrial sector. If anything, they see it more impactful in the industrial sector than anybody else. So I think we can thank a lot of the Ubers and whatnot to kind of introducing this flexible, make your own schedule, work when you want to work, gain skills a lot faster than you would normally type scenario.
Right. No, I agree. And kind of funny. I mean, even our own industry probably helped feed it when we look back in the old days of, when eBay first started and people could make money sitting at home selling stuff on a computer. And
that's
here
right.
we are now. Yeah. So
that's
fantastic.
and when I first, this will kind of blow your mind a little bit. When I first learned about Veryable before I came to work here, and was completely and utterly evangelized by our current CEO and founder, he said something to me that I was like, yes. So he said to me, the natural state of man and woman is to be their own boss.
Yeah.
We want to be in charge of our own work and career destiny. And a lot of the times there are so many traditional constraints and things that are stopping us from, in today's modern world, that are kind of stopping us from being that. So, and Veryable, or any kind of platform like Veryable, is really kind of unlocking that for us these days.
Yeah, it really is. And yes, I see that. I mean, people don't want to be controlled by others. They want to be able to control their own lives.
Yeah. And what's cool is when you've got a marketplace concept, the workers that are on the platform and the businesses, to be honest with you, are motivated to do good work. This isn't a one and done. This isn't, you can come in and be lazy, because it is the perfect, supply and demand equation, meritocracy. You do good work, you get good ratings, you get more work in the future. You do bad work, you get poor ratings, and you don't get selected in the future.
Right.
So
no,
that's what's really neat.
And that kind of leads us into the next question of, why do businesses want to hire on demand? And really, why do people want to go to work for on demand? Both directions.
Yeah.
What is it that people are looking for? Why are businesses what's going to be their advantage to on demand versus traditional labor?
Yeah. So first I'll start with, you asked, what are some trends you're seeing in the labor market? So first we'll start with, well, we know those trends, and the impact is, for businesses is pretty critical. I mean, they're seeing reduced operational efficiency and margins. In other words, or in layman's terms, it's, it's limiting all of these shortages and issues and challenges are limiting higher productivity and at the end of the day, revenue growth. That's what businesses care about, whether you're an operations manager, a director of operations, or a CEO. So how this fits in, and why does a business want to use on-demand labor? Consistently engaging with, so we understand this concept of a marketplace, right? We know what a marketplace is. So when a business can consistently engage with a wider and more diverse ecosystem of workers via, a marketplace like Veryable, that business is arming themselves with the ultimate flexibility and agility that is critical for, operating through today's turbulence, and not just operating through the turbulence and the chaos, but also growing, gaining market share, and competing, leveling the playing field. So just imagine, scenario one, you've got all this work to do, you've got all this crazy demand. It's great, right? It's a great thing to have. But if you don't have enough resources, you're missing out. So, when you use an on-demand labor model, and stop me, Kim, if you have any questions, but when you use an on-demand labor model, you're not only gaining, but you're retaining an unlimited supply of capacity. We say infinite capacity, and it's always at the click of a button. So with that, you're increasing your throughput, you're decreasing your labor costs, you're enhancing your revenue, and all of that good stuff. So
it's good to know. That's fantastic. So as businesses add on-demand labor and they're using this type of a system, what are some great metrics that they can look for? What are some ways that they can know that they're using this correctly and that they're employing people as they need to?
Yeah, so just generally speaking, especially for customers like yours, distributors, fulfillment centers, warehouses, typically what they want to watch when using on-demand labor is your lead times. Are your lead times decreasing, right? Are you filling your on time in full dispatch or on time in full shipments? Are those increasing? Are you seeing it go from 90% to 95, right? Throughput, just generally speaking, how much volume are we able to complete and get out the door in one day or in 1 hour? So units per hour, efficiencies, and then finally labor costs. When you're able to variabilize your labor costs and not be stuck at this crazy fixed line, you're going to see tremendous enhancements to your margins.
Okay, that's great. Do you have some tips that can help people be able to watch that? Maybe some best practices when they're using on-demand labor so that they know how to watch for that? Are there tips and tricks to go with that, tools, adoption from others, or knowledge that they can gather? And also, what about knowledge for the workers?
So let me answer that first question. So Varyable it's a great question. Varyable, at the surface is a marketplace that's providing a source of on-demand labor, right? But we're also digital manufacturing technology. So what does that mean? We are a software company, right? So what we're doing is we're building all kinds of operational tools within the business portal that helps businesses track the value that they're creating using on-demand labor. It takes just a couple of inputs, inputs like what's your ideal lead time, what's your ideal overtime, and then intuitively we're tracking that ROI and that value for the business. So I wanted to make sure that your audience knows that we're not just a place where you go get labor.
Right.
We have boots on the ground operational teams in every single market that we're in that's essentially helping you implement this crazy concept of on-demand labor into your operating strategy, and then also providing operational consulting when it comes to on-demand labor. Because at the end of the day, Kim, we're not trying to replace full-timers. Absolutely not. There's a place for that.
Right.
And I have a story for you there, and it kind of goes with your second question. We're not even trying to replace temp to hire. That, again, is a very critical strategy for most businesses. The idea of Varyable is being able to blend in this flexibility at no risk, at no cost to scale, and having this more robust model when it comes to attracting and retaining talent. So we have all kinds of people. We're pretty decentralized when it comes to our operating model. So we have teams of folks in every single market, whether it's Louisville, Dallas, Atlanta, that are coaching the businesses through this ramp up process. And then of course we have all kinds of business journey tools within the portal too.
Great to know and very helpful. So my last question is, how do I use your tool? How do I?
Oh my gosh, it's so easy.
How do I get there?
That's like one of the biggest questions you hear when you know, people say, well, we need to innovate. We need to innovate. It's like, yeah, we need to innovate. And then you're like, okay, but where do we start?
Right.
You know? So at Veryable, we have this amazing technology team and product team that has made it as easy as possible for users of the platform, both the workers and the business, but specifically for businesses and your customers, it really just requires creating a profile. And that takes 30 seconds. You could literally create a profile and a business profile in 30 seconds and start posting out for that incremental labor that you need as soon as tomorrow. That's how fast and reactive and responsive the marketplace is.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Any other information you want to pass on to our viewers so that they know how, why, what, where? The floor is yours. Give them
I actually do, and it's because I forgot to mention it earlier. So the whole impetus of this, you know, operating model in this variable, you know, concept is what we call your labor pool. And this is the main, I guess you could call it, feature of our model. But what it does, what this means is building this curated network of repeatable workers, or a bench, or, you know, a bench of people that are always going to be there when you need them. The idea is to grow this labor pool, this curated labor pool. Let's call it Kimren, you know, Inc. Kimren Inc. is a distributor, and she needs a labor pool of about, or they need a labor pool of about, call it 50 or 100. You're not limited on how big you can build that labor pool, but the idea is to consistently engage the marketplace, consistently and deliberately post out work into the marketplace. So you're seeing more and more and more of these on-demand workers that you can then favorite or save into your curated pool. And then they become this external asset that maximizes your efficiencies. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like people will say, oh, you guys are like Uber. And I'm like, kind of, in the fact that we're a marketplace. But how many times have you had an awesome Uber driver and you're like, oh, I wish I could have that Uber driver again, but you can't.
Right.
So our marketplace encourages developing those relationships with these on-demand workers, still cultivating them in that relationship and that engagement, but just not requiring the constraints that a full-time environment would.
I love that. And that's great, because you find the people you want, and then you get to rinse and repeat, and
that's right,
bringing the same people back. That's fantastic.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and letting us know about Veryable and the on-demand labor market. We really appreciate it, and we will talk again soon. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.